Oh, hi everyone, welcome back to the John Deere B tractor restoration. And in the last video we talked about putting the crankshaft and its bearings, etc. into the engine. So the next stage to do is to put the camshaft in. I was asked a few weeks ago to do a video regarding the fitment of the camshaft, but unfortunately I've been so busy this June. It's now actually the 2nd of July, but I've had no chance to get to it. But I've managed to scrape in a couple of hours this afternoon, a bit of a fiddle, and so we'll try and get the camshaft put into the tractor. Now, obviously here is the camshaft gear. And there is the camshaft itself. And the camshaft gear obviously bolts onto this flange. Now on the camshaft, on this hole here in the middle, one side has a chamfered edge, and on the other side it's straight cut. And what you've got to do is you've got to make sure that the chamfered edge side goes onto the camshaft pointing that way. So the chamfered edge in this way. The holes don't help at all because they're all symmetrical. Those holes will bolt anywhere on the 3 holes on the camshaft. But what you do have is there's a hole there. I'm not too sure what it's for, but there's a hole there. And generally, on all the ones I've done anyway, there's always been left a bit of staining in the metal. I don't know if that's coming out, but you see where that white dot is? There's a bit of a stain there. So that's a good indicator that that wants to line up, that hole, that mark there, wants to line up with that hole. Now the timing marks on the camshaft that you need to be worried about at the moment, I don't know if you can see that, but I've highlighted it with a bit of white paint, is there's a whole dot there, and those 2 teeth I've marked, which are the timing marks in relation to where it fits to the timing mark on the crankshaft. Basically on the crankshaft there's a tooth which is marked, and that sits in that gap in this point here. Now in the book, if say you didn't have that bit of staining mark, in the book it suggests that when you install the camshaft gear onto the camshaft and you have the mark there pointing directly upright, the right hand lobe, this piece here, should also be pointing directly upright. Now when you bolt them together, it's somewhere near. It doesn't. Both of them don't. They're not exactly pointing all upright, but it's a good indicator. But I tend to go by, if that staining mark there, if you can see that from obviously over the years, bits of staining from the steel, line it up with that hole there on the camshaft, and you won't be a million miles away. So the first thing to do, I'll bring the light over to the tractor. First thing to do is to slot the camshaft. Let's get it, we'll get it here. Try and do this with holding the camera in one hand. The first thing to do is you slot the camshaft in through the top of the gearbox, in through the top of the crankcase, like so. Hook one end to one side, see that, and then bring it back, and so it sits with the other end pointing out here. The difficult bit for me is I can't put the gear on, hold the camera and line it all up, because obviously I haven't got enough hands. But basically you would move the camshaft that way, out this hole on this side, slot the gear down, and then visually line everything up, as I say, with the chamfered edge on the camshaft gear that way, and then line it up with the markings on the crankshaft. Now the markings on the crankshaft, I don't know if that's going to come out, hopefully it does. There it is, that white tooth. So that white tooth sits between the two white marks that I have already marked on the camshaft gear. There we have it. Now, as I say, I've marked that mark up there. There it is. Don't get confused with the other mark that's on the other side, which is there. I haven't marked it out, but there is another mark there. You can see that dot there. Now that mark there helps you with the timing of the governor to some extent. To some extent. But it's not written in stone regarding that mark on there and the governor gear mark. But I'll come to that later on, because sometimes I've found that there can be an odd tooth out one way or the other. The best way to time the governor up is to make sure that when you've put it all together is that the cutouts in the governor shaft are horizontal, in line with the tractor for where you bolt the magneto on. But as I say, I'll come back to that later. That's another day. But as I say, don't get confused with that mark at the moment. The mark that we're interested in at the moment is that one there and those two marked lines there. Now normally I wouldn't bother marking those two lines, but I've done it for the video. I mean, it's only all I use as my white paint is the white stuff you use in the office for when you make mistakes, you know, on paperwork. I forget the name of it. That's what I use. But white paint would be fine. White paint would be fine. So yeah, so roughly that's what it's about. What I'll do is I'll bolt it all together and then do a quick 2-minute video with it all lined up and all the marks all lined up, and hopefully that will be a final explanation. One final thing is that this bearing here, now they are just plain cast iron bearings, there's no inner sleeves or nothing in them, but remember they're not turning very fast. That just bolts straight on here on this side through the hole. You don't need to put a gasket on it, because remember all this side here is all hidden away under the clutch cover and the primary gear cover. So it doesn't matter if there's a bit of oil leaks out between that and the case, because it's still contained inside the tractor. On the other side, and I'm just going to get this now, get this bearing. So on the other side, there's the camshaft bearing, camshaft sticking out. There's the bearing. It will only fit one way, because there's a cutout there which allows it to sit on top of here. And this is where we put gaskets under here on this side, and that's where we able to get ourselves our end float, because you vary the amount of gaskets that you put between that surface and this surface here. So no gaskets on the far side, but gaskets on this one to get the end float, i.e. to, you know, end float, the amount of movement it has side to side. Just to get what it is, it'd probably be another 5-10 thou sort of thing, I would think, 5 to 10 thousandths of an inch, which isn't a lot. That's what it is. One slight thing I did do, and I realise now, I bolted the cam follower in there a few months back in one of the videos, and of course you've got to slacken the cam follower off, that thing there, you can see that moving, that there, so you can get the cam gear in to mesh, because there's that, so you can get the oil drive gear into mesh. So it's that fella. Let's knock everything to bits, David. Hang on. So yeah, it's that funny cut gear there. That transmits power to the oil pump drive. So what I'll do, as I say, I'll put it all together now and do a quick video on how it's all lined up, and I'll show you the setup I have with the dial gauge, because I think we will have to dial gauge that one because I have no gaskets that I can measure up. Alright then, thank you.